The morning started like any other on Defense Station Alpha. Captain Jake Morrison sipped his coffee while watching the stars through the observation deck. Earth turned slowly below, its blue surface peaceful in the early light. 300 years of space travel had made this view normal, but Jake still found it beautiful. His peaceful moment ended when the alarm started screaming. "Captain, to the bridge." The voice came from everywhere at once. Jake dropped his coffee and ran through the metal corridors. His boots made loud sounds on the floor. As he rushed to reach the command center, the bridge was full of noise and flashing lights. Officers sat at their stations, typing fast and talking loud. Jake could feel the fear in the air like electricity before a storm. "Report." Jake shouted over the noise. Lieutenant Amy Hughes looked up from her screen. Her face was white with shock. "Sir, we have multiple contacts. Very large ships just appeared in our space. They came from nowhere." Jake moved to the main screen. What he saw made his stomach drop. 5 massive ships hung in space like sleeping giants. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were dark gray and covered with strange marks that seemed to glow with their own light. "How big are they?" Jake asked. "The smallest one is 3 times larger than our biggest battleship," Hughes replied. "The largest one is the size of a small moon." Jake stared at the ships. In all his years in space, he had never seen anything like them. The metal looked old, very old. It had marks and scratches that could only come from traveling through space for a very long time. "Any communication?" Jake asked. "Nothing yet, sir. They are just sitting there." Jake felt his heart beating fast. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. "Give me Admiral Carter," Jake ordered, "and send alerts to all colonies. We need everyone to know about this." As his crew worked to contact Earth and the other human worlds, Jake kept watching the alien ships. They did not move at all. They just floated in space like they had all the time in the world. Then something changed. The largest ship began to glow brighter. A beam of light shot out from it and touched the station. Jake felt a strange feeling, like something was looking inside his mind. "Captain," Hughes called out, "they are trying to talk to us." The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the ships, it now showed a face. Jake tried not to step backward when he saw it. The alien looked almost like a human, but wrong in ways that made Jake's skin crawl. Its skin was pale white, so pale it was almost see-through. Its eyes were large and gray, like old metal. When it moved very slowly, as if it was underwater. "Greetings, young species," the alien said. Its voice was deep and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am High Archon Velter the Undying, speaker for the Eternal Dominion." Jake stepped forward. His training told him to stay calm, even though his hands were shaking. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Human Defense Force. Welcome to our space." The alien's mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but it was not friendly. "Your space," it repeated slowly. "How interesting. Tell us, Captain Jake Morrison, how long has your species existed?" "Humans have been around for thousands of years," Jake replied. "Thousands," Velter said, and the way he said it made it sound like nothing. "We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 of your years. We have seen species like yours rise and fall many times." Jake felt cold fear run down his back. "What do you want from us?" "We come to offer you a place in our empire," Velter said. "As we have done for countless others across the stars. You will serve us, and we will protect you. This is the natural order of things, and if we refuse," Jake asked. Though he already knew he would not like the answer, Velter's strange smile grew wider. "Refusal is not possible. We are eternal. We have time on our side. Your short lives will end, but we will remain. Eventually, you will see the wisdom of joining us." The alien leaned forward on the screen. "We give you 1 rotation of your world to consider our offer when your sun rises again. We expect your answer." The screen went black. Jake stood in silence, staring at the empty screen. Round him, his crew waited for orders. But Jake did not know what to say. "Sir," Hughes asked quietly. Jake turned to face his crew. These were good people, brave people who had signed up to protect humanity. Now they faced something bigger than any of them had ever imagined. "Contact all ships in the system," Jake ordered. "Give me every captain, every admiral, every leader we can reach, and get our best scientists on those ships. We need to know everything we can about these aliens." As his crew rushed to follow his orders, Jake looked back at the screen. The alien ship still hung in space, waiting with the patience of beings who claimed to live forever. one day to save humanity. Jake had faced long odds before, but nothing like this. He thought about Earth below, about all the human worlds scattered across the stars, about families and children who had no idea their lives had just changed forever. The Immortals had given humanity one day to surrender. Jake intended to use every second of that day to find a way to fight back. After all, humans had never been good at giving up without a fight. The emergency meeting room on Earth was full of the most important people in human space. Admiral Roy Carter sat at the head of the long table, his gray hair making him look older than his 60 years. Around him sat generals, scientists, and leaders from all the human colonies. Dr. Lisa Park adjusted her glasses and looked at the data on her screen. She had been studying the alien transmission for 6 hours straight, and what she found made her worry more with each passing minute. The biological scans are complete, she said to the room. These aliens are unlike anything we expected. Admiral Carter leaned forward. Explain it in simple terms, Doctor. Lisa touched her tablet, and a picture appeared on the wall screen. It showed the inside of an alien cell, magnified thousands of times. They have achieved something we thought was impossible, true biological immortality. The room became very quiet. General Kate Rivers, a tough woman who had fought in 3 colonial wars, spoke first. How is that possible? Their cells repair themselves perfectly, Lisa explained. Every time a cell gets damaged or old, it fixes itself and becomes new again. They don't age, they don't get sick, and they don't die from natural causes. That sounds like good news for them, said Commander Amy Hughes, who had been promoted after her work on the defense station. But why do they move so slowly? Lisa smiled, but it was not a happy smile. That's the interesting part. The process that keeps them alive also slows down everything else. Their metabolism runs at about 1/10 the speed of ours. They think slowly, they move slowly, and they react slowly to everything. Dr. Ben Foster, a mathematician from Mars Colony, looked up from his computer. I've been studying their language patterns and response times. Lisa is right. When Captain Morrison asked them a question, it took them almost 30 seconds to answer. That's not translation delay. That's processing delay. Admiral Carter stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see people going about their normal lives, not knowing that aliens hung in space above them. What else do we know about them? Amy Hughes opened her file. Our intelligence teams have been listening to their communications. The aliens use very old transmission methods, but they're not trying to hide anything. They seem to think we're too primitive to understand them. What are they saying? Carter asked. They're talking about their other conquests, Amy replied, based on what we can understand. They have taken over more than 1,000 worlds. But here's the strange part. It took them 50,000 years to do it. The room filled with whispers. General Rivers did the math in her head. That's 50 years per world, on average. We've colonized 12 worlds in less than 300 years. Exactly, Amy said. They're powerful, but they're incredibly slow. Every decision goes through layers of approval that can take months or years. Dr. Foster pulled up a new display. I've been analyzing their ship designs from the visual data. Every ship follows the exact same pattern. The basic design is thousands of years old, with only tiny improvements added over centuries. Lisa looked at her biological data again. I think I know why. When you live forever, you stop taking risks. Why change something that works when you have all the time in the world to make tiny improvements? Admiral Carter turned back to the group. So they're slow and careful. That doesn't mean they're weak. No, Lisa agreed. Their technology is far ahead of ours. But technology isn't everything. They've been using the same strategies for thousands of years because they've never needed to change. Amy Hughes stood up and walked to the front of the room. I've been thinking about this. Every species they've conquered before was probably like them, thinking in long terms, planning for centuries. They give an ultimatum, wait for the species to accept the inevitable, then move it when resistance crumbles. But we're different, General Rivers said, understanding where Amy was going. Very different, Amy confirmed. We think in years and decades, not centuries. We adapt fast, we change our plans quickly, and we don't give up easily. Dr. Foster showed them more data. Look at human technological progress over the past 300 years. We've advanced faster than any species in their records. They probably expect us to be using the same technology in 50 years that we use today. Admiral Carter sat back down. Are you suggesting we can beat them? I'm suggesting they don't understand us, Lisa said. Their whole strategy is based on outlasting their enemies. They've never fought anyone who changes faster than they can adapt. Amy pulled up tactical displays. We've been intercepting more of their communications. They're confused by our response. Most species either surrender immediately or prepare for a long, slow war. We're doing neither. What are we doing? Carter asked. We're preparing for a fast war, General Rivers said, a smile forming on her face, something they've never seen before. Dr. Foster showed them ship modification schedules. Our engineers have been working nonstop. We can modify our ship's configurations in hours, not months. We can change our tactics in minutes, not years. Lisa looked at her biological data one more time. There's something else. These immortals have one weakness we can exploit. Their perfect cells are designed for stability, not stress. Rapid changes in environment, temperature, or pressure could disrupt their systems. You mean we can hurt them without killing them? Amy asked. Better than that, Lisa replied. We can confuse them. Their brains are optimized for processing slow, steady information. Hit them with rapid changes, and they might not be able to function at all. Admiral Carter stood up again. This time, he looked confident instead of worried. Gentlemen, ladies, I think we have the beginning of a plan. General Rivers was already thinking about tactics. If they think slowly, we need to move fast. If they plan for centuries, we need to be unpredictable. If they rely on stability, we need to create chaos. How much time do we have left? Carter asked. Amy checked her watch. 14 hours until their deadline. Then we better work fast, Carter said, because we're about to teach some immortals that sometimes being late to adapt means being too late to win. The room erupted into activity as humans began doing what they did best, adapting quickly to an impossible situation. The human fleet looked nothing like it had 12 hours ago. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched as engineers finished the latest modifications. His vessel now had weapons that could change configuration in minutes, and armor panels that could shift position during battle. Status report, Jake called out. Lieutenant Amy Hughes, now serving as his tactical officer, looked up from her station. All ships report ready for Operation Swift Current. We have 6 to 7 vessels of various sizes, all equipped with rapid modification systems. Jake nodded. The plan was simple in concept but complex in execution. Instead of fighting the aliens with superior firepower, humans would fight them with superior speed and unpredictability. What about the psychological warfare package? Jake asked. Dr. Park's team finished loading it an hour ago, Amy replied. We have music, art, literature, movies, and cultural data from all human colonies. The transmission system can broadcast different content every few seconds. On the other side of the bridge, Commander Roy Nash worked at the communication station. He was younger than Jake, but had experience in electronic warfare. The aliens are still sending the same message every hour, he reported. No change in their transmission pattern. Jake smiled grimly. Even their communications were predictable. Down in the science lab, Dr. Lisa Park worked with her team to prepare the biological weapons. These were not designed to kill the immortals, but to overwhelm their ancient immune systems with rapid changes. The aerosol dispersal system is ready, she told her assistant, Dr. Emma Cole. Each canister contains bacteria that multiply and change rapidly. Their immune systems will work overtime trying to adapt. Will it hurt them? Emma asked. No more than a bad cold would hurt us, Lisa replied. But remember, they haven't been sick in thousands of years. Their bodies won't know how to handle even minor illness. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Kate Rivers coordinated the ground-based part of the operation. Massive transmitters pointed toward the alien fleet, ready to flood them with information. We have every form of human entertainment ready to broadcast, she told Admiral Carter. Comedy shows, action movies, music videos, sports highlights, news programs, and educational content, all designed to change rapidly and create sensory overload. Admiral Carter watched the countdown timer. 2 hours until the alien deadline. What about their response patterns? Dr. Foster's team has been monitoring them, Rivers replied. Every time we make a change to our fleet formation, it takes them at least 20 minutes to begin adjusting their position. By then, we've already changed 3 more times in space. The alien fleet maintained its perfect formation. High Archon Velter stood in his command chamber, watching the human ships with growing confusion. His immortal mind struggled to understand the constant changes he was seeing. status of the young species, he asked his aide, a being called Murdoch, who had served the Dominion for 8,000 years. They continue to modify their vessels. Murdoch replied slowly, our tactical computers cannot establish a prediction pattern. Their changes appear random. Velter's ancient eyes narrowed. In 50,000 years of conquest, no species had behaved this way. Most accepted their fate or prepared for traditional defensive positions. These humans seem to be preparing for something else entirely. Perhaps they are showing us their desperation. Velter said, young species often engage in meaningless activity when faced with superior force. But even as he said it, something in his immortal mind felt uncertain. Back on the human flagship, Jake received reports from all ship captains. Each vessel was ready to implement rapid tactical changes. The plan was to never let the aliens adapt to any single strategy. Captain Morrison, came a voice from the communication system. It was Dr. Park. I'm reading some interesting data from our long-range sensors. What kind of data? Jake asked. The alien ship emissions are changing. Their power signatures are fluctuating in ways that suggest stress on their systems. Amy looked up from her tactical display. Stress from what? We haven't engaged them yet. From watching us, Dr. Park replied. Their sensor systems are working overtime trying to track all our modifications. They're using more power in the last few hours than they used in the previous day. Jake felt a moment of satisfaction. The plan was working, and they hadn't even started fighting yet. Commander Nash reported new alien communications. Sir, they're sending more messages between their ships. The frequency has increased by 300%. Can we understand what they're saying? Jake asked. Some of it. They seem to be requesting new tactical assessments and asking for guidance on how to handle unpredictable enemy behavior. General Rivers' voice came through the fleet communication system. All units, begin phase 2 of psychological operations. Suddenly, the space around the alien fleet filled with transmissions. Human music blasted from multiple sources, changing genres every few seconds. Rock music became classical, then jazz, then electronic dance music. Video transmissions showed human sports, comedy shows, action movies, and educational programs. All switching rapidly, the effect on the alien fleet was immediate. Their perfect formation began to waver as individual ships tried to process the flood of information. On Velter's ship, alarms began sounding. The Immortal crew struggled to handle the sensory overload. Beings who had lived for thousands of years in peaceful stability suddenly faced chaotic human creativity. Make it stop, one of his officers pleaded, holding his head in his hands. We cannot process this much change. Another reported, our systems are overloading. Velter stared at the displays showing human cultural content. In one screen, humans played a fast-paced game with a ball. In another, they performed music with instruments that changed sound every few seconds. A third showed humans telling jokes and laughing for the first time in millennia. High Archon Velter the Undying felt something he had forgotten how to experience, confusion. Send a message to the humans, he ordered. Tell them to cease this chaos. But as his communication officer tried to send the message, Jake's fleet began the next phase of their plan. All 6 to 7 human ships started changing formation every 30 seconds, creating patterns that the Immortal tactical computers could not predict or counter. The battle hadn't even begun, and the Immortals were already losing their composure. For beings who had conquered the galaxy through patience and predictability, facing an enemy that thrived on change was like facing their worst nightmare. Jake looked at the timer. 1 hour until the deadline. 1 hour to prove that sometimes the oldest civilizations could learn something from the youngest ones. The deadline arrived with no surrender from humanity. High Archon Velter stood in his command chamber, his immortal mind struggling with concepts it had never faced before. The humans had not begged for mercy. They had not tried to negotiate. Instead, they had spent their final hours creating chaos. Begin the cleansing, Velter ordered. Using the ancient term his people used for conquest, the alien fleet moved forward with the slow precision of a glacier. Their massive ships began charging weapons that could destroy entire cities. But as they advanced, the human fleet scattered like leaves in the wind. Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien formation approach on his main screen. All ships, execute pattern Alpha 7, he commanded instantly. The human fleet reformed into a new configuration. Small fighters darted between larger ships while cruisers changed their weapon arrangements. The aliens had prepared to fight, the formation they had seen a minute ago, but that formation no longer existed. The first alien energy blast fired where human ships had been, not where they were now. The massive beam of power hit empty space, while human vessels attacked from completely different angles. Direct hit on alien ship number 3, reported Amy Hughes. Their shields are down by 15%, but Jake was already thinking 3 moves ahead. All ships, pattern beta 2, implement in 30 seconds. The aliens tried to adjust their targeting, but their ancient computers needed time to process the new human positions. By the time they recalculated, the humans had changed. Formation again. On Velter's flagship, chaos ruled the bridge. Officers who had lived for thousands of years struggled to understand what they were seeing. Their enemy was everywhere and nowhere, changing faster than mortal minds could follow. Target their largest ship, Velter ordered. Which formation, my lord? His tactical officer asked. They have changed configuration 7 times in the last 3 minutes. Velter stared at the battle display. In 50,000 years of conquest, no enemy had fought like this. Every species they had faced before fought predictably, trying to match alien firepower with their own technology. These humans fought like they were dancing instead of dying. Commander Roy Nash, leading a squadron of fast attack ships, exploited the aliens' confusion. His ships moved in rapid, seemingly random patterns, striking alien vessels and disappearing before return fire could reach them. This is crazy. His wingman, Lieutenant Dan Cole, said over the radio, "They're so slow. It's like fighting statues. Don't get overconfident," Roy warned. "One hit from their weapons and we're finished." But the hits weren't coming. The alien weapons were designed for fighting enemies who stayed in one place long enough to be targeted. Human ships that changed direction every few seconds were nearly impossible for Immortal gunners to track down in the science bay of Jake's ship. Dr. Lisa Park released the biological warfare package. Clouds of rapidly changing bacteria spread toward the alien fleet, carried by small drones that zigged and zagged through space. The biological agents reached the first alien ship and began seeping through its air systems. Within minutes, Immortal crew members started feeling something they hadn't experienced in millennia: physical discomfort. On alien ship number 4, crew members began collapsing. Their immune systems, perfect but unused for thousands of years, went into overdrive trying to fight off bacteria that changed faster than they could adapt. "My lord," came a panicked transmission to Velter's ship. "Our crew is experiencing system failures. They report pain and confusion." Velter's ancient mind reeled. Pain was a concept he had almost forgotten. Immortals didn't get sick. They didn't suffer from biological attacks. Meanwhile, General Kate Rivers increased the intensity of the psychological warfare. Human cultural broadcasts now included rapid-fire comedy shows, fast-paced music, and sports highlights that changed every few seconds. The effect on the Immortal crews was devastating. Beings whose minds were designed for stability began shutting down. When faced with chaotic human creativity, some Immortals simply sat down and stopped functioning, overwhelmed by sensory input their brains couldn't process. Status report, Jake called out as his ship dodged another slow alien energy blast. 17 alien ships showing reduced combat effectiveness, Amy reported. Their targeting accuracy has dropped by 60%, and 3 ships have stopped firing entirely. But Jake noticed something else on his display. The aliens were trying to adapt. Their formation was slowly changing, attempting to create overlapping fields of fire that would limit human movement options. "They're learning," he told Amy. "Not fast, but they're trying. Should we be worried?" she asked. Jake smiled grimly. "Only if we let them finish learning." He opened communications to all human ships, all vessels. "Prepare for final phase. Operation Chaos Storm begins now." What happened next would be talked about in military academies for centuries. Every human ship simultaneously changed configuration, formation, targeting pattern, and movement strategy. The battle space became a 3-dimensional maze of unpredictable motion. Human ships that had been fighters suddenly sprouted heavy weapons. Cruisers that had been hanging back charged forward with weapons they hadn't shown before. Support vessels revealed hidden attack capabilities, while attack ships began providing electronic warfare support. The aliens' tactical computers simply gave up. Faced with an enemy that refused to follow any pattern, their systems stopped trying to predict human behavior and fell back on basic defensive protocols. Velter watched his fleet fall apart. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds couldn't. Handle an enemy that changed faster than immortal minds could think. My lord, his communication officer reported, we are receiving a transmission from the humans. Jake Morrison's face appeared on Velter's screen. The human captain looked tired, but determined. High Archon Velter, I have a proposal for you. Surrender. Terms? Velter asked hopefully. Not exactly, Jake replied. I challenge you to single combat. If you win, humanity will join your empire. If I win, you leave our space and never return. Velter's immortal pride flared. A challenge from a being who would live less than a century. The very idea was insulting. You would risk your entire species on single combat? Velter asked. I would risk it on the idea that immortality isn't the advantage you think it is. Jake replied. Around Velter, his bridge crew waited for his response. Ships that had never lost a battle were losing to humans who had been in space for only 300 years. His ancient mind, designed for long-term thinking, struggled with the rapid changes of the last few hours for the first time since becoming immortal. Velter wondered if living forever might actually be a weakness. I accept your challenge, he said, his voice carrying the weight of 50,000 years of conquest. But as he said it, Velter couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to learn something that immortals were never supposed to discover. The neutral meeting space was built quickly between the two fleets. Both humans and aliens agreed to use a simple metal platform floating in space. With basic life support for both species, Captain Jake Morrison checked his equipment one last time. He wore a standard spacesuit with basic armor and carried simple weapons. Across from him, High Archon Velter prepared for combat in armor that had been crafted over centuries of immortal warfare. Dr. Lisa Park watched from the human flagship, monitoring Jake's vital signs. Remember, she told him through the communication link, his experience is vast, but his reflexes are slow. Don't try to match his knowledge. Use your speed. Velter looked at the human captain with ancient eyes. This mortal was young enough to be a brief moment in immortal time, yet he had dared to challenge a being who had lived for thousands of years. You understand the terms? Velter asked. 3 tests. The winner of the test claims victory for their species. I understand, Jake replied. What's the first test? Velter gestured to a complex maze that had been constructed on the platform. Navigation and problem solving. We must reach the center of this maze, but the paths will change every 30 seconds. First to reach the goal wins. Jake studied the maze. It was clearly designed by immortal minds, complex, logical, and full of patterns that would take time to understand. Perfect for beings who thought in centuries. Begin. Velter announced. Both figures entered the maze from opposite sides. Velter moved with careful precision, his immortal mind analyzing each path and calculating the optimal route. His thousands of years of experience let him see patterns that would be invisible to shorter-lived beings. Jake, meanwhile, simply ran. When the maze changed after 30 seconds, Velter paused to recalculate his route. Jake kept moving, adapting to the new paths without stopping to think. When the maze changed again, Velter needed another few seconds to adjust his strategy. Jake had already found a new route and was running toward the center. Impossible, Velter muttered as Jake reached the goal first. First test to Morrison. Announced the neutral computer system they had agreed to use as a judge. Velter stared at the human in disbelief. You had no strategy. You simply ran randomly through the maze. I adapted, Jake said simply. When the maze changed, I changed with it. You stopped to think about the perfect path. I just found a path that worked. The second test involved building a functional device from random parts scattered across the platform. Both contestants had the same goal: create something that could send a signal to their respective fleets. Velter began by carefully examining each component. Drawing on thousands of years of engineering knowledge, he sorted the parts by function and began constructing a device based on proven immortal technology principles. Jake grabbed a handful of parts and started connecting them. His device looked crude and chaotic compared to Velter's elegant construction, but it worked. The human signal reached his fleet while Velter was still perfecting his design. Second test to Morrison, the computer announced. Velter's immortal composure finally cracked. This is impossible. You know nothing compared to my experience. You're right, Jake agreed. But I don't need to know everything. I just need to know enough, and I need to know it fast. The final test was combat. Both fighters stood at opposite ends of the platform, armed with energy weapons that would stun rather than kill. The weapons will change every 60 seconds, Velter explained. Swords to energy blasters to projectile weapons. A true test of combat skill. Jake nodded, knowing this would be the hardest test. Velter had millennia of combat experience with every weapon imaginable. They began with energy. Swords. Velter's technique was flawless, each movement perfect and precise. His blade work was art form refined over thousands of years. But Jake didn't try to match the Immortal's skill. Instead, he kept moving, changing his fighting style every few seconds. When the weapons changed to energy blasters, Velter expected Jake to adjust to the new combat form. Instead, Jake immediately threw his blaster aside and tackled the Immortal. While Velter's ancient mind tried to process this unexpected change, Jake stunned him with the Immortal's own weapon. Final test to Morrison, the computer announced. Human victory. Velter lay on the platform, not hurt, but completely confused. That was not proper combat technique. No, Jake agreed, helping the Immortal to his feet. It was effective combat technique. Through the communication links, both fleets watched as their leaders faced each other after the unprecedented defeat of an Immortal. I do not understand, Velter said quietly. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have experienced beyond your comprehension. How did you defeat us? Jake looked at the ancient being with something approaching sympathy. Because you've been immortal for so long, you forgot what it means to truly live. Explain. When you live forever, you stop taking risks, Jake said. You perfect your techniques, but you never learn new ones. You develop the best strategies, but you never adapt when they stop working. You become so focused on being perfect that you forget how to be flexible. Dr. Lisa Park's voice came through the communication system. Speaking of both fleets, your immortality made you evolutionarily stagnant. You preserved your knowledge, but lost your ability to grow and change. Velter's ancient mind struggled with concepts it had never considered. But we are eternal. We have all the time in the universe. That's exactly the problem, Jake replied. You have so much time that you stop valuing it. We know our lives are short, so we make every moment count. We adapt fast because we have to. We innovate quickly because we can't wait centuries for perfect solutions. The Immortal looked at his fleet, then at the human ships that had defeated them with inferior technology and superior adaptability. What happens now? Now you have a choice, Jake said. You can keep doing what you've always done and watch younger, more adaptable species surpass you, or you can learn from us. Learn what? How to change, how to grow, how to live like every day matters. Dr. Lisa Park transmitted data to the alien fleet. We've developed treatments that could help. Your people experience controlled mortality, not death, but the ability to feel time passing, to experience urgency, to understand that some moments are more important than others. Velter was quiet for a long time. Around him, his immortal crew struggled with ideas that challenged everything. They believed about their superiority. Finally, the ancient being spoke. For 50,000 years, we believed immortality was the greatest gift in the universe. It is a gift, Jake said, but like any gift, it can become a burden if you don't know how to use it. General Kate Rivers opened a communication channel to address both fleets. We offer friendship, not conquest. We can teach you about adaptation and change. You can teach us about patience and long-term thinking. Together, we might find a better way forward than either species could discover alone. Velter looked at Jake Morrison, the mortal who had defeated an immortal. Your species lives for such a short time. How do you bear the pain of knowing it will end? Jake smiled. The same way you'll learn to bear the pain of knowing it could end. We make it matter. We make every choice count. We live like we're running out of time because we are, and that makes you strong. That makes us alive. Months later, the first group of immortal volunteers arrived at human research stations to learn about controlled mortality. They came not as conquerors, but as students, eager to discover what they had lost in their quest for eternal life. High Archon Velter was among them. For the first time in millennia, the ancient being felt something he had forgotten, excitement about the future. Not because it would last forever, but because it might not. The immortals had called themselves eternal, but humans had taught them something more valuable than endless time. They had taught them how to truly live, die in the end. The beings who claimed to have all the time in the universe discovered they had been late to the most important lesson of all, that life's value comes not from its length, but from what you do with the time you have.